Chyba jest dobrze. Mówię coś do mikrofonu. Tak, zaczęliśmy. Witam wszystkich na 60. Pykoniku. Nazywam się Kuba Wasielak. Ja poprowadzę dzisiejsze spotkanie, tak jak zazwyczaj wygląda to na Pykonikach. I tym razem też nie zapomnę o tym pytaniu tradycyjnym. Do we have any only English speaking people here? So, alright, this meetup will be hosted in English. I know that at least one presentation will be in English. So both presentations would be in English, as far as I know. So this meetup will be in English. So to start again, welcome on the 60 Pykonik of the Tech Talk type. We have different types of Pykonik, but this is the 60th one, considering it only happens once a month and not all months. It means that we've been operating for quite a while. Today we will have two presentations for you, a competition and a bit of other interesting stuff that now I will explain. I also wanted to welcome everybody on the stream. I hope we have people there who will be listening. And of course, all of that will be recorded and posted on YouTube. First of all, let's say a few words about the agenda for today. First of all, I'm really sorry for the delay. The guys here have many cables than I have in all my drawers in the apartment, and they know each cable, what each cable does. So I think that we can welcome them with a loud applause for setting this up. It's a great to have it streamed. Yeah, so good job with this. So we have a slight delay, but it's not a problem. I hope the worst case scenario, we will go for a beer 15 minutes later. You know, it sounds bad, but it's not that scary. First of all, we have a starting talk. We start the meeting right now, so that should take a few more minutes. Then I will welcome you for the first presentation, the presentation by Michał about the microservices. And then we will have a snack meaning pizza break, around 8:15, something like that. We'll take around 20, 30 minutes of break. It depends how the presentation goes, because we have a bit of delay, maybe we can limit that. After that, around 8:30, Piotr would say another presentation about the packaging projects in Python. And after that, we will have two interesting stuff. The first one is lightning talks. For those who might not know, lightning talks are quick, very usually light or interesting talks. They shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. And that's a time where any one of you can come here, take the microphone, take the HDMI, connect to the setup, and tell about anything interesting. An interesting library that you've been working with, an interesting project, an interesting event in Krakow or not in Krakow. That is the time for you to grab the microphone and tell about anything. You don't even need to have a laptop. We can show some slides for you. Do we have any interested in giving a lightning talk? 1, 2, 3. I think there was one more person. So we will have at least 4 lightning talks around 9:15. And after that, we will have a summary of a competition, because some of you might be used to the online quiz thing that we do at the end of every meeting. We want to try something new today. Just to mention, the competition is only for the people who attend here, not on the people on the streaming. This time, the competition is slightly different because it runs on our Discord, which I will be mentioning about in a minute. So I will go to the competition rules at the end of this presentation. After that, after all of this, we're going for the after party. We will be heading into the main square direction. So let me start with this question. Who wants to go for the after party? That's a lot of hands for asking this question first. Yeah, that's good. The after party is cool. You can chat with a lot of interesting people. You can ask questions to the presenters. That's a good opportunity to just socialize. So feel free to join us. Probably I will be leading the group for the after party, or I will point somebody that would. Let me just say a few thank yous. First, big thank you is for Spot-On for being a lovely venue and hosting us here, for funding the pizza during the snack break, and for funding the drinks, alcoholic and non-alcoholic, that you can feel free to grab whenever you're thirsty or not. Big thanks to Spot-On, and let's just give them a loud applause. The second sponsor today is JetBrains. Thanks to JetBrains, there will be prizes in the competition. There will be 2 1-year PyCharm or any other professional JetBrains tool licenses to win. So these are just vouchers for any JetBrains tool, meaning, for example, PyCharm Professional. And this will be a part of the competition. And I forgot to mention that also from Spot-On, there will be some kind of a different t-shirts to win during the competition as well. And last but not least, Krakow Linux user group. Thanks to them, we have streaming. These are these guys who work hard to make sure that everything works fine. And it works fine. And we have streaming and everything is recorded. So if you're interested in previous talks from Pykonik, they are always available on YouTube. And the last slide for this presentation is about Discord. We have a Discord channel. You can enter that through discord.pykonik.org. So anytime you can just enter this URL and join our Discord channel. And our competition today would be hosted on the Discord. So to take part in that competition, you need to register to Discord. And you can do that. It's optional, of course. For the competition, it's mandatory, but I recommend joining our Discord channel because it is quite a live channel and there are a lot of discussions and questions about Python, development in Krakow, and all the other stuff. So just to say one word about the competition. You don't have to download anything. Discord works in browser. Yeah, I personally use that in browser as well. As in here. So on our Discord, there are few channels, but there is also one new channel, Pykonik 60. It doesn't mean you have to be 60 to enter this channel. It's about the 60 Tech Talks Pykonik, of course. Please share, I'm explaining the rules of the competition. Please share something interesting that you've learned during the last month. So that is the theme of the competition. And the rule is the post with the biggest amount of reactions wins the competition. So 2 of those. There is a slowdown, so you can only post one thing every 15 minutes on that channel. You're not limited to 1. You can share more. Is that normal? Yes, a question. Do we have internet here?
Yes.
Yes. We will have password in a second. So which network is that? I will write it here, but I will not post that message. Maybe. Where is it? So that's true. That's true.
To tak samo jak z tą windą, nie? Trzeba mieć kartę, żeby wjechać, ale można wejść po schodach.
We're experts of the security. Okay, maybe we'll share. Does anyone else needs the access to the internet? Then we'll just share the internet password with one person. And that is on the Discord announcement channel. So just to wrap it up and just to get to the fun part of the presentation, the competition. Write anything interesting that you've learned during the last month on the Pykonik 60 channel. The 2 posts with most upvotes win the competition and the PyCharm licenses, and there will be t-shirts as well. And that's it from me. I am passing the microphone to Michał with his first presentation. Let's hope that the setup will take only 2 minutes. So we will take 2 minutes break, grab another drink, and Michał will be back with you in 2 minutes. Thank you.
Right. Hi, my name is Michael. This is going to be about caching and microservices. There's going to be live coding. I don't have much slides, so I'm going to do a quick intro into the thing I'm going to show, and then dive straight into code because I have, well, a ton of code to write. So bear with me. Hopefully, you're going to live through that, and I'm going to live through that. Right, so what I prepared for this talk is a simple REST API that mimics one of the products we have at Silver. And the thing we do lightning control. So users can create projects like buildings, then configure them, and then use mobile application to add and configure lights. And then the system is supposed to configure those lights so that they realize some kind of control scenario. For example, the light turns on whenever you enter the room, and so on. So in order to mimic that, I prepared a very, very simple demo. This is strictly API. There is no UI for that. And the way it works is that users identify themselves by passing an HTTP header. And we trust that header. I don't do anything about authentication. And then those users can create projects, can share those projects with other users, identified just by name, nothing else. And then within a project, users can create areas like rooms, and then add nodes to those rooms. And then the system should produce some kind of configuration based on complex computation done in the background to tell you what should be the exact precise configuration of each lamp. This is very, very bare bones. I'm going to do a demo later. Right, so demo, how it works at the moment. I have here a Docker Compose on the left that runs everything. And the API works like this. You can get a list of projects that you have. So saying that you're user foo. You can list projects. If you're another user, you can list that. And then if you want, you can create a project. For example, saying that you are user foo, you can create that project, and then it appears on your list and it doesn't appear on the other users list. So this is the very basic thing, and I'm going to be working primarily with that view. On the left, you can see that on the red are highlighted the hits to the database. This is hosted on Postgres. So whenever you create something and retrieve that from the database, there is a red log saying that you are going to ask the database for data. And the whole point of this talk is to avoid those. Assuming that the database operations are expensive, you want to do as little as them as possible. This is the basic architecture of this demo. So you have a client, the browser or CLI or whatever, and it always hits Backend For Frontend. This is our API gateway, whatever you call it. This is a single designated service that is exposed to the outside world. And the thing it does, it asks other services for stuff. And two of those and those have a database, and this one doesn't. We are here, meaning that we are going to be on the backend exclusively. And implementing this cache that I'm going to show doesn't require you to do anything about the client, the customer or whoever that talks to your system. Everything happens between your API gateway and the underlying service. A thing of note here is that those services don't talk to each other at all. And this is important. All the communication goes between BFF and individual services. For example, if something needs to be calculated, then BFF is supposed to fetch the data from here, and then send it here for computation and get back the result. Right. So let's get to work. the thing is done in Fast API. This is the thing I'm working on. If you need details, there is my previous talk about that when I do a simple introduction. So I'm assuming that you at least know something about frameworks. Right. So this is the service that implements the BFF. Exposes some endpoints, and pretty much the only thing it does, it takes the built-in client that I implemented for that demo and asks some other service for data. And this is that other service exposes this endpoint. And what it does, it takes the user from the header. BFF is supposed to transfer the header from the browser to the underlying service, and then fetches that from the database. Now, in order to cache that information, I figured the nice way of doing that is creating a middleware. So we're gonna just implement that. I don't want to change too much in those views and all the logic, the business logic that happens here. Ideally, the whole thing is gonna be as transparent as possible. So let's start. This is a file I prepared, and we can start implementing the middleware. Unfortunately, this needs to be an SGI in middleware, not Fast API one, because the responses sent from your application might be streamed. So whenever you access the body in a regular middleware, you don't have it yet. Like, it's not yet produced by the view. So in order to do that, in order to capture the body, whatever the response is, we're gonna implement that as a pure middleware. And in order to do that, you need to know a bit about ASGI. Fortunately, we do know something. So let's start with that. We're gonna create a middleware. And we need something like this. Middleware takes an application and the cache. Just stores that information inside of it. And then you need, the middleware in SGI is a function, asynchronous function, a coroutine that takes something that is called a scope, a function that is called receive, and a function that is called send. And it gets called by the server with stuff. So basically, in order to just capture whatever comes through your server and the application, you just need to write this function and everything goes through it after you install it, obviously. And we are interested only in HTTP traffic. There is other traffic in SGI that we don't need to hear about. So just if it's not HTTP, we're gonna pass it just to the application. And if it is HTTP, then we know that scope contains the method. So this is get post and everything. It includes the URL that you need to construct from the scope. Fortunately, Starlet, that is the basis for Fast API, provides a class to do that for you. And then we're going to call the application as previously. But in order to capture whatever the application is producing, we're going to pass our own function instead of the original send here. This is the function that gets called whenever your application wants to send anything to the client. So we're going to create another function later on that is called cache send. And we need, for that, we need a cache. And we're going to pass method, URL, and the original send. And this function is going to look like that. Right, it's gonna use a number of things, so I'm gonna use data classes for that because I'm lazy. It needs to hold a cache, and this is gonna be memory cache for the sake of the presentation, and we need to also create that. Empty for now. It's gonna hold the method, that is a string, and it's gonna call the URL, that is an URL, else, and send, that is a send imported from here. This is a callable, nothing really interesting. Right, so now we're gonna implement the call down there, so that whenever somebody calls that function, we're gonna intercept that. And when your application or your SGAI framework produces a response, it starts with sending a message that is of type HTTP response start. This is a message that contains headers and the status code and everything. So we're gonna just store that. If type is HTTP response start, then we're gonna store it instead of sending it right away to the client. This is a message. Then everything that comes after the start is HTTP response body, and it might come in a few chunks. So we're gonna just accumulate those chunks in order to capture the whole response. And this is gonna be just a list of messages. And by default, it's gonna be an empty list. Now, those chunks might contain a field called more body, and if it's true, then there will be more chunks, and if not, this is the last one. So whenever there is something else that will come through, we're gonna just return, and if it's the last, then we know that we can send it back to the client. So we're gonna do that. First send the response start, and then send everything else. Now in here you have the whole body, and since we do have the whole body, we can compute a hash of that and maybe try to cache it. So first of all, let's assemble the body. This. Then compute the E tag for that. And we're gonna we're gonna encode that as base 64 in order to pass that through a header. And we're gonna use a simple hashing function to calculate that. This is the digest, and that's it. And then we're gonna add that digest to the response headers. This is why we needed to accumulate, we needed to store the response start in order to modify it before sending it out to the client. Very good, thank you. Yes, I need to do that. Thank you. Right, and we have the E tag, so we know the hash of the response, and we can store that hash in our cache. We don't have that method yet, but it's gonna come soon. Response headers are interesting here. and etag. Etag returned by base 64 is of type bytes, so we want to keep strings in the cache for simplicity, so I'm going to just decode it as UTF-8. Now, we don't have that field, but this is quite trivial to do. Fortunately, the framework we use knows how to parse the row response start message. So let's do that. And now to the memory cache. We need some kind of storage for the things that we keep in the cache. Then we need some way of constructing the key. And at the beginning, I'm gonna just use a tuple of method and URL. And then method that is called store. We used that previously. It takes method, it takes URL, it takes response headers, and it takes an etag. And the only thing it's supposed to do is to get the key from method and URL and add an entry in the cache to hold response headers and an etag, or maybe other way around. We want to keep response headers in order to return them as they were whenever the client comes, and we want to return a cached response instead of generating a new one. And then for that, we need also a cache entry. And it holds an etag that is a string, and it holds response. Sorry. That is headers. We're gonna log that to see if it works. Key and etag. Right, so we implemented the middleware that accumulates the whole body, calculates the hash of that, and adds that, and then etag header, and stores the etag and the response in memory. Hopefully, we need to install the middleware, obviously, right here. So first of all, create the cache. And then add middleware. This is our cache middleware that is gonna use the cache, and we need to input that and memory cache. Memory cache here. No, this doesn't work. What happened? Oh, sorry, not this file. Here, scope, of course, not HTTP, but type. Right, and it needs init requires a response start because this is or none and is empty by default. Now, URLs are not hashable. So in order to construct the key, we need to take a string of that. And hopefully, right, we start seeing some kind of logs that tell us, well, the Docker Compose asks the services for health. So it's going to invoke a get on a certain endpoint, and you see that it indeed works. It passes through the middleware and gets stored in a cache. Like here, we asked for the list of projects, and it got stored. And theoretically, the response sent to BFF includes that header, and we're gonna check that in a minute. So now let's go to the client side. This is the client that BFF uses to talk to our service. And we need to capture the response. This is an AL HTTP client. already overridden. So in order to capture the response, we need to override the response class and write that. Client response this time. It has another method to start, and we're gonna just invoke that from our base class start connection. And now we have all the fields that we need. So we're gonna check if there is an e tag in the response. Self headers get e tag. And if there is, we're gonna log it. Okay, maybe that. And that's pretty much everything that we want to do at this point. Hopefully, our client response is not defined. Yeah, okay. Right. So you see that the client in BFF, this is the name of the service, is indeed in the headers. This is good, so we can use that and cache it. So we need a cache. This is also a middleware, so let's do the same thing and add a cache. And we're going to pass that to the session. So it comes here. And then we need to pass that to the response. And client response needs to take that in the constructor. And then super under init args. Right, and right here we should have access to cache. So self cache, we can store it as previously. And we're gonna tell it about the method. We're gonna tell it about the URL. We're gonna tell it about the e tag, and we're gonna tell it about self. And self is the response. Now, cache doesn't exist yet, but we can copy paste it because why not? But this time the entries are gonna hold a whole response, not just the headers. And this is the memory cache. It takes an URL, takes the response, and stores it. Right, this is pretty much everything. And of course, we need also to include the additional argument we've just added. And hopefully, cache is not defined. Here should be self cache. Let's see what happens now. You can see that the BFF also stores whatever is received. This response is stored. It should be an e tag. Right, it is. And store includes the key and an e tag. Right. The wrong way, wrong order of arguments. Store takes response first and e tag second, and I passed it the other way around. So let's fix that mistake. Yeah, that's better. So now we see that both the server stores the generated hash and the response headers. The client stores the whole response and an e tag. Now, in order to tell the server that we have something in the cache and check if it's okay, we need to pass that information, whatever we stored in the cache, we need to pass it in the request. So we're gonna add this, as previously, add the cache to the client request override. In it looks the same. There's nothing going on. And now, if there is an entry in the cache that matches the method used, and the URL, then we're gonna in the request we're gonna add a header specified by HTTP that includes the e tag. So that will tell the server that we have something in the cache. This is the hash that we have on our side. Check if it's okay, or if anything changed in the meantime. And we don't have the get method here, so we're gonna write that. It needs to construct the key and then just return whatever is in the cache. This is not going to do anything yet, apart from breaking. It should be self-cache get. Because the only thing happening right now is that we included the if non-match header in the request coming to the service, and the service doesn't do anything about that. But it should, and it could. So let's do that. Whenever we start at the very beginning, right here, when we receive the method and the URL, we also get headers, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And we can construct them from the scope. And now, if there is a header, and there is an entry for the method and the URL, and entry e tag matches whatever the client sent, we are not going to invoke the application, so the view in our code is not going to be called at all. Instead, we send back a 304 response with empty body saying that, okay, client, whatever you have is okay, just use it. And we are emulating the response coming from the application. Status is not modified. We're gonna send the original headers. And then an empty body. So this is a message of type HTTP response body with more body, as you've seen previously, set to false. And we return. Now the get is not copied, so let's move it. And let's see what happens now. The theory goes that BFF is gonna talk to the project service, get the response, cache it, and the second time we ask for the same thing, is gonna send the if not match header to project service. The project service should see that the hash is okay and it matches, and it's gonna send back an empty body with not modified response status. So the first thing goes through, and the second thing breaks. And it breaks because, okay, so this is a weird thing that breaks. Should be breaking in another way. Let's see. I messed up somewhere. Probably here. I'm sending a HTTP response and oh, this is weird. Now this wasn't planned at all. what do we have in the stack trace? Not much. It fails in a very, very strange way. Headers. I love this stuff. Right, try again. Right. So the first time it goes through after cleaning the cache. Right, so it goes through, and the second time it fails. It fails on the client side, and the client says that, okay, well, I don't know what to do with the response. The response should contain a list of projects, but it's none. It's empty. Well, it is empty because the service just sent an empty body. So the client doesn't know anything, what to do with that. And we know that it should be taking the response from its own cache. So let's add that. If a response comes, and if the status is not modified, then if there is an entry in our cache, we're gonna log that. So that we fetch the response from the cache, not from the original, well, not from the real service, and then override ourselves, basically. I don't know if this is the cleanest way to do that, but I found it works. Reason, and this is the most important thing. We're gonna override the body. And this, if it's not right, so now we tell the client that whenever it receives a 300 for not modified, it should use the response that has been previously stored in the memory cache. And hopefully this time we're gonna get the response again, and we did. And the important thing you see here is that the first time we asked for the list of projects, project service got asked for the information and hit the database and retrieved the list from there, stored everything and so on. But the second time we asked for the same information, there is no hit to the database. The only thing that is happening is that the client is fetching that response directly from memory, and the ping pong between BFF and projects is only to verify the tag, that it actually did not change in the meantime. So problem solved, right? We have a cache that works, and we didn't need to do anything on the client side. Question here: who sees a problem? The problem is right here. If you ask for the list of projects as a certain user, and then ask for the list of projects as another user, what's going to happen? We're going to hit the cache and get the wrong response. This is because the cache key that we constructed previously depends only on the method and the URL. Well, this is not correct. This is not correct because if you take the project service and see what the view is doing, the view get projects here is querying the database using username taken from the headers. So we need to include that in the key that we create for our cache. This is going to be complicated, more complicated than everything else previously. And so this is going to be the last thing I'm going to show because I'm running out of time. So let's start with telling the client that the content of the response depends on the X user header sent by the client. And the way to do that, supposedly, is to include in a response header that is called vary. That has been historically used to negotiate content, languages, and so on, but I'm going to abuse the system. I control both sides, both the client and the server. So let's use the same header. And I'm going to tell the client that we are going to vary the response on the value of the X user header taken that we receive in a request. And then obviously we need to use that on our side to cache things. So we have request headers. Let's pass them here so that get can construct the cache key. And then here as well, so that send, whenever it stores things in the cache, can also construct that key. So this is a new argument, so we're gonna add that in all places. First of all, cache send takes that argument, so let's store it. Request headers, and these are just headers. And we're gonna pass them to the store method. And then here to get and to key and to store. URL, request headers, and here. Now, in order to create that key, we have whenever we store things on the server side, we know the response headers, so we know the vary that the view set. So let's extract that. That's gonna be name for name in response headers get vary. Default is empty. Let's split that by semicolon and get rid of empty headers. And we need to pass it here to the key method in order to add all that information to the cache key that we're going to create. And the cache key is going to be augmented with a list of tuples that match the name of the vary header to its value from the request. So that works for the store. It doesn't work for the get, because whenever we receive a request, we don't know what the previous response was. So we don't know the list of vary headers for that request. But we can save it. And we're gonna do that for URL. Hopefully, whoever is going to implement that is going to be sane and choose the correct key here. I'm just going to assume that the URL always returns the same value of the vary. And we're going to just keep that. And then here we can just extract it. Get URL by default empty. And include that here. I hope I didn't miss anything. Headers is not callable. What? So send. When did I do that? Possibly. Request header should come after URL. After URL. is a call to send, and it says it's of a type of headers. So maybe like live coding. Perils of live coding. I've done it a few times. Come again? At the bottom? It's supposed to be like that. This is because this is a raw message in a SGI parlance. So it needs to encode headers as bytes instead of a just straight dictionary of strings. Right, yes, order of arguments. Yes, this should come here because it's a data class. Thank you. Right. Right, so this creates the proper key on the server side, assuming that the view declares that thing. And this should be visible somewhere. Right here. On the project side, we store and the cache key includes the user. Now we need to do the same thing on the client side, and then we will be done. So let's do that. On the client side, we have a cache. We're going to do the same trick with storing the vary. I think we can even copy everything. Because why not? Let's do it like that to save time. Only the entry is going to be a bit different. This is the only difference between the two caches, by the way. And the fact that it stores a response here. So we need to change that to a dot. And then everything else should be the same. Now the client response here needs to include request headers in both cases. Here, request info headers. And for the get, we need our own headers. Let me double check. Yeah. Cache get. These are the request headers as named, yes. And for the store, we get we give it the request headers and the response, and it takes the vary from the response headers as it should. And hopefully now everything's going to work again. And it obviously doesn't. Response headers get what? String object. Again arguments. Request info headers, it itself. Headers. Right. I copied the mistake I made previously. Right? We asked for the list of projects for user foo. We ask again. It's the same, but it doesn't hit the database. Now we do that for another user. We get an empty list. It hits the database, meaning that list for that user wasn't cached. And we do that again, and it doesn't hit the database, and it returns an empty list. And it's done. So the only thing that needs to be modified on the view side is you need to sprinkle the code with this information. Whenever you use anything outside of the URL and method to produce the response, for example, body, because you can vary on that. Why not? If it's a post or some other arguments. Yep. Then you need to tell the system that your view produces the response based on that. And as soon as you do that, the cache is working. The last thing that I'm not going to show because I don't have time anymore is cache invalidation. The most interesting thing that needs to happen here is that whenever any of those projects changes, you need to invalidate the cache. Fortunately, because of how the machine is created, you can access the cache key from within the view. And the way I implemented that, it's going to be on GitHub, is I added to the models, I added a signal that you can subscribe to. Whenever anything changes in the database, you can subscribe to that signal and invalidate the cache in the view itself. And this is the second modification that you need to do in your views. So you need to subscribe to whatever models that you are using to produce the response, and invalidate the cache whenever it's needed. And this part depends on the business logic, and I don't believe it can be done in any other way. Right. So that's it. That's it. Thank you. And questions.
Czy są jakieś pytania? Do we have any questions?
Please don't.
So I was wondering, because we are using all this typing in Python, right? So if we had that bug that we had with like the order of the things in data class, right?
Yes.
If we would use MyPy on the project, would it detect that?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I didn't do that because it takes longer to type.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
I have a meta question about the talk itself. How long does it take to practice for such a talk?
A week.
And another one, is there any library that would spare us implementing all of this by ourselves? That you would
Yes,
suggest?
but it didn't exactly fit my need. There is an SGI caching library implemented, but it doesn't do the thing I do here with vary. And it also doesn't allow you to access the cache key from within the view, so you cannot subscribe to model changes. Other than that, it works okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so thank you once again.
Oddaję.
Okay, so let me invite you everyone to the pizza break. I think you can already smell it. We'll put the boxes around the place everywhere, and we'll have around 20 minutes, and I will be telling when the break is over. But feel free to enjoy and socialize a bit, and then enjoy the pizza, which is on Spoton. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, so we'll be talking today about packaging in Python projects in 2023. If you don't know, there were some changes to the whole packaging process, exciting ones, maybe. That should work. Yes. I'm Piotr, also known as Windblade, on our Discord. If you didn't yet join the Discord, please do it now or later, but preferably now. So let's start with going back in time a bit. Also, quick disclaimer, I did part of this talk before as a lightning talk on Pykonik. If it seems familiar, if you have any deja vu, if it seems familiar, if you have any deja vu, that's probably why. So yeah, let's start from the beginning. First, there was no packaging in Python. That concept was foreign to Python. And in 2000, somebody took some, maybe before that, but in 2000 it happened, somebody took some effort to create a this-utils library that was introduced in Python 1.6 as a method of packaging. That was like a good, probably, attempt for doing that. It was successful for some time, but it worked. So this is a modern example of using these utils. Modern, maybe modern is not a good word because this utils itself is not very modern, but it's like not from the 2000. Probably it won't work in the Python 1.6 from year 2000 for some reasons. But basically, you import this utils core, you provide some metadata about packages. I think all provided here is the least amount of required things. You specify Py modules, so this is your module that will be exposed as a package in the built-in package, a lot of packages, yeah, and that's it. Then you build it by running setup by sdist. Then you can install it by setup by install. The build is not required for installing it. The building is for like distributing it mostly. And you can, with these utils, build an exe that will install your package like by running the exe file, or RPM or Debian package. All of that was supported in these utils directly. In 2001, some PEP about package metadata was created to standardize how we are distributing what this package is, what is it not. It included like the name of the package, short description, long description, aka README, and some tags, so you can quickly search for packages. And in 2003, the cheese shop, PyPI, Python package index, was created. It was documented how it should work in PEP 301 in 2002, and it was brought online in 2003. So we could have used it to download the packages. Easy install was not yet published at this point, so you would have to download it, but yay, it will be possible to do something like that. Yeah, so you have everything, right? The problem is solved. That's the end of the presentation, right? Yeah, no. Problems. First, packages had to be built on the target PC, like except the RPM, exe, and Debian packages. If you are outside of those environments, you have to download the targz with source file and then build that from that targz file your package to install it in your system. It was just invoking setup by install, but still. Any change to these utils, as it was a part of the standard library built in Python, would have to go there. So it's a slow release, it's a painful release, etc. Not everything will end up there. And yeah, because of that, you cannot update these utils. If you want to use new these utils, you cannot just rely on like upgrade it separately. You have to upgrade the whole Python. Maybe you cannot because your Python requires, like, you cannot migrate to newer Python because of some breaking changes. And if you package, if you want to target the previous Python version, then you have to rely on the toolchain for that previous version, even in the newest Python, or build them separately. Like the whole feature set from these utils from your Python version is not available in the previous one. So yeah, and yeah, if there is anything that it's not supported by these utils and never will be, it never will be. You will not get it. So setup tools was born. It was a set of extensions for these utils. It included that all the list of things in smaller font right there. It was also package installation tool, and it was able to pull the dependencies as well when installing packages. These utils couldn't do that at this time, so you would have to use setup tools for your package to automatically pull all the dependencies it also needs for running without asking user to install them manually. It introduces X somewhere around 2004. I don't know if it was in the original release of setup tools or somehow later, but X are pretty much universal pre-built packages, so you don't have to rely on the on your operating system. You can just use X and extract them that way. And they allowed to create easy install. And advantages, it's not in a standard lib. So it's much easier to update. You can update it independently from Python. You don't have to rely on Python itself being in the right version to use that, etc. It developed much faster, or at least at the beginning of it. And it's just a thin wrapper of these utils currently with 25,000 line of code. So yeah, very thin. And all you need is replace this import with setup tools import. If instead of this util score, you just import setup tools and just invoke the setup as previously. That's it. Problem is, again, solved, right? We can go home. Thank you. That's the end of the presentation. No, I wish. So the problem is this is not in a standard lib. Like, wait, I just said that this was an advantage. What's about that? Yeah, so you cannot rely on people to have it installed in the newest version. Again, problem, or installed at all. That means you have to install it first and convince your user to install the required version first. A bit simpler than forcing user to use a specific type version of Python, but still. There's wacky solution for that. Easy install was born. So easy install was bundling in setup tools because it was built on top of setup tools. Pip is right now doing the same thing. So if anyone uses setup tools, you can rely on them having easy install. You can rely on them having setup tools. So, and easy install is a nice, easy way to pull packages from PyPI. So, like, it's given when you say, please use easy install, then they will have setup tools. And later, pip was born. Second, package manager, but because let's say easy install was more like installer than manager of packages, and pip is actually package manager. Again, build on setup tools, and even easier to use that easy install. You can pass requirements txt files to it, and it will just process them and install everything from them. And also worth mentioning, build out is like building packages, not only packages for Python, it was bundling other binaries, other required software together with Python files. You may see it familiar to what Conda is doing. Pretty much similar. There are some similarities. They are very similar, but there are some differences. I will not go into them. It's not about build out or Conda right now, because first, I'm not using them. I don't know them. And second, that presentation would be too long. Then virtualenv was born, distributed. It was fork of setup tools. As I said, setup tools was very fast developed at first, but it slowed down. Somebody forked them. Then they merged back together. Some drama, etc. Then in 2013, wheels were born. They replaced eggs for the like bundled packages for your bundled build packages. Because X had some problems with compatibilities between Python versions and systems. Wheels are more or less solving those problems. They're much better and much simpler for sure. Wheel is just a zip file with build package and some file with metadata of that package. And that's very simple. And then virtualenv started including setup tools and pip in any newly created virtualenv. So now if somebody uses virtualenv, you can rely on them having those two in pretty recent version. Still some problems. Backwards compatibility of setup tools there is, but it sometimes breaks. But preferably it should support everything ever done with setup tools, because like there may be some packages still being used that were last updated in 2005, and maybe they work in Python 3, and we don't want to break it just by breaking something in setup tools. So it needs a very long backwards compatibility track. And what if you need like very specific version of that setup tools for your package to be installed, because actually something from backwards compatibility broke, or maybe they fixed some bug and for some reason you were relying on that bug being there. Yeah, it happened probably to anyone from here to rely on bug. Raise your hand if you ever rely on such thing. Yeah, not many hands, but yeah. And what if you need plugin for setup tools or anything outside of setup tools, any tool outside of setup tools? There are some ways that setup tools can do. I will talk about them later, I think. But yeah, it's still a somewhat problem. And if you need anything else, and what if you don't want to install anything in your system on environment to install that thing? Like you don't want to, like, there's that package 2 to 3 Python package that will automatically convert you Python 2 to Python 3 code with some success rate, but still some things that were written for Python 2 are relying on that on their installation process. Like building package will convert it on the fly and install the like converted version of your package. And what if you don't want to keep that 2 to 3 after the package was installed? Because it's at this point not needed. It was needed only for the installation process. And we need to get rid of setup tools. This thing is stupid. Like, you need to execute that file to get any information about the package you want to install. There's no other way. And you know how executing something that you don't know anything about works. Don't do it, pretty much, but Python forces us to do it. So that's a major security concern, that to even know the name of the package, that like the real name or the version of the package, you have to execute that file. Stupid, again. So in 2016, PyProject Toml was born. That was actually pretty some time ago, but it's like surfaced only like recently, I think in 2019, maybe 2020, it was started surfacing really. So it allows you to list required packages for build process. Like you put your, like, I need setup tools, I need build package, or I need, I don't know, build, maybe not, but I don't know, poetry, anything like that. You just list it in the PyProject Toml, and when it comes to installation, to install that package, Python will, like, the whole machinery behind that will take care of installing them, and it will install them in the separate ad hoc virtualenv. So there, it's separated from everything you are doing right now. And after Python is done with that package, installing it, building it, whatever, that virtualenv will be removed. from your system. So there is no leftover. There are no leftover packages after building or installation. After that, it was extended by PEP 517. Like, yeah, you see, like PEP 17 was actually like how that number happened, that extending PEP 518 happened. Like, I don't know. I don't have any explanation for that, but actually that's what happened. PEP 517 is extending PEP 518. And again, extended by PEP 621 to add metadata. 517 was allowing you to set up the build specific build tool. Like, you can choose what actually has to be executed to build or install your package, because installing is actually out of scope. And right now, to install properly, like officially package, you have to build a wheel. That happens like under the hood for you, but that's how it works. And then that will be installed. Will be installed. Great syntax. And 517 actually defines that ad hoc virtual length partially, and then it's a mess. Like, those two PEPs are somehow entangled together. You cannot separate them anymore. And it can contain tool configuration. Like, you can put whatever you need for any tools, like Black, like setup tools, as you will see in example, Poetry, etc., in that file. And there was actually a problem with that, because some packages were not ready to be installed via that PEP 517 and 518 machinery, but they wanted to use Black. And Black is only configured by PyProject Tom. And only introducing PyProject Tom in your project was enabling by default that machinery to build your package with some defaults. And so some packages were broken in newer versions of pip. So yeah. And probably more things in the future will end up there. Looks like this. Like, those 3 lines is everything you need to start using the new machinery. You need to set setup tools. You can specify version. Wheel, for building wheel. Actually, setup tools, at least in previous versions, were not including wheel dependencies, but it relied on wheel to build wheels, like for that package. That's why it's here, and this screen is actually what will be by default used if you are opting into PEP 517 without specifying them implicitly. And that legacy, legacy at the very end means that you that will just like setup tools will just execute setup py file. Whatever is inside that setup py file, setup tools don't care. It doesn't have to rely on setup tools, that setup py, but we will be just executing it to like complete the install. So it's backwards compatibility for packages that still are using setup py. And that's it. Like there's also backend path. If you want to extend if you want to import something from your project to finish installing it, building your project, that sometimes happen. Like you have your own bundled builder or plugins for builder, then you can use backend path, because when you're using this new machinery, it will by default not include anything from your package. When you're just executing setup py, it will include like your whole project by default, like root of your project will be in Python path. But if you are using that, you have to use backend path and specify like that dot that in means root of your package to include it. And how it works with pip. That's the thing I've said before. If you have no PyProject Tom, it will just execute setup py. It will right now do it in a separate environment, so it is somehow isolated, but from that environment is allowed to import things from your system or outside of your environment. Like if you are in virtual env and you're installing something by pip that requires building, it still can access things in your virtual env. It still can import them. And that's how it works. And also it will, as I said, include the your whole package in the Python path. If no build system is, if you have PyProject file, but it's empty, or in general, it doesn't have the section build system, it will use defaults that I specified here. So those 3 lines will be implied that if you don't have any of those lines at all, like the first line in general. If you have build back system, but build backend inside build system, so the 3rd line is not present, it will error out. It will say, sorry, I cannot install that package, that's it. So you don't have like some broken things. And if build system build backend exists, it will use that build backend. So after you use build system and build backend, those 1st and 3rd line without the 2nd line is not implied. So you have to specify the requires if you are specifying build system and build backend at all. And you can force isolation when installing your packages via pip, like end user can do it. Like you can specify no build isolation that disables that the package will actually not be built inside ephemeral virtual env at all. You can no use PEP 517, so no, you will not use anything from the PyProject file, anything specified there, and can force using PEP 517 if build backend or PyProject file is not specified. So it will try to install that package with those defaults and not execute setup by directly and not import anything from the package directly, but call setup tools to do the work. Yeah, so as I said, if you have PyProject, it's it or nothing, and you cannot disable it. Like if you have PyProject, you cannot opt out from those things if you are a package maintainer. End user can do it. You, as someone who publishes that package, you have no control over it. Unfortunately, you have to like remove the PyProject file completely from your project to not use it. But I think you shouldn't do that. You just need to tweak the settings inside the PyProject file to make your package work, because it will work much more reliably with that. Like I've seen some people asking, still after that thing was introduced and used, after that black fiasco I've mentioned earlier, I've seen people asking users to install 6 first before they install this package, because 6 was needed for the build process of their packages. And they were angry at the same time that including PyProject file was breaking installation of their package, because it no longer had the access to the 6 file that was 6 package that was installed in the system, and they were angry because the tool that allowed them to not ask users for installing it first existed. Like, that's crazy. So those are 3 packaging tools that right now are supporting a PyProject file. They can be like invoked by it. There are more, but those 3 I know of, and I will demo them. And it's demo time right now. So let me actually do that. So right now I will, on the left side of my screen, you can see the tree of my project that I'm working right now. Right now I have a directory called awesome package, and in it by file. That's it. There is something inside that file. We don't have to care about it at all. So right now we will do just poetry in it. It will create a very nice tutorial for us, so we can specify package name dummy name that nobody will use. That's just like a name, so we are sure that we are not conflicting with anything that it is installed in PyPI, in test PyPI to be exact. I will not be publishing it in the official, like the main repository. So the name here with 23 is required for that. Yeah, don't ask about that 23. Version of my package. Description of it. I will do awesome package. We have a small mistake. Leave the author default. GPL license because sure, MIT, but will be overwritten later on because yeah, and I will actually specify 3.9 at least is required by my package. And yes, I want to do some requirements right now. Requests at 2.23.0 exactly as they suggested. That's all of my normal requirements. I did asks about development dependencies. I will explain later what it is, but more or less, it dependencies, development dependencies will not be installed with your package. It's just for your development of it. So I will just say black. That's it. Yeah, I messed up. Sorry, I have to start over. Actually, I do whatever. Here, it doesn't matter anymore. Like nothing of it matters anymore. Yes. Requests this time. Fine. Anything. Anything. I'm done. Here, black, without a mistake. I wanted to show you that screen. It will like just search for dependencies on PyPI. I specify black at the first one. It will ask me for a version. If I don't specify, it will just grab the newest one and show you what it is. Then I don't want to add any more packages, and that's the file it will generate for me. Is this correct? Yeah, I'm happy with that. Let's just execute, finish it. So that's in it, and I will be executing my magic command. And now PyProjectome is completely different because that's a template that I had saved before. That's why I wasn't completely caring about what I'm importing, what I'm putting in. So we have our name, our version, description, authors, yay. Everything is like right there. This is like, I think minimum, like you can skip dependencies, but we want them for the demo. But it's like more or less what we need. Let's build it. Yeah, it failed. Why? Because if you maybe you noticed, but random name nobody will ever use 23 is not our some package module that we want to include in our package. Normally, you should name your package exactly with what module is inside to avoid any confusion. You can like prefix it with Python or replace hyphen with dashes. Actually, everything is hyphen in the PyPI repository. It is normalized, but it's shown how you specified. But like it's normalized for looking for when you look for a package. But yeah, use it consistently. I'm not using it to show you that problem. So right now, what we have to fix here in packages, we need to specify awesome. I cannot type today. Yeah, awesome package that matches what we have in our source tree. Let's build it, and it failed again. Why? This time we see we have a line right there, specifies that readme is readme. Yes, readme is readme, that's correct. Great job, poetry. But it's actually that full description that will show in like the whole body of the package, and we have nothing there. So we'll just create an empty file for that. And now our package should build, and it did. And in this directory right here, you can see there are two files. One is a wheel, one is a targz, it's a source distribution, and this is a wheel. Wheel is just build package. Source distribution is unbuilt, and it will require executing a build process on the user side when they install the package. Okay, let's move on. So there is like that's poetry. We were using poetry to build the package. We weren't actually using any of the new stuff that was introduced in that peps that I mentioned earlier, because I've just executed pep. So how you use it? It's simple. Python free -m build. So there is a module called build. It is not in the standard library. You have to install it. You don't have to care about installing it unless you have to build it manually, because pip will build it for you. It's only if you need development of your package and you have to want to see how it builds in the pip environment. And we'll just create that virtual env asset. And it failed because okay, sorry. I think I'm that also works. Next, sorry. Here Python is mbuild again, and you will just execute. I had some uncommitted changes and my magic didn't work properly. So yeah, it built. It just did the same as poetry, but it called poetry differently. Like it installed actually not poetry, the whole package, but the poetry core that is specified here. That is like the only machinery that is needed for that whole thing to be working. Whole poetry, like all the command line stuff, etc., is not needed, and it's not included in that core. The normal poetry like relies on the core. So that's it when it comes to build. It just like again, just executed .poetry.core.monitoring.api. There are some functions defined in the peps mentioned above that has to be included in that module that is specified in build backend. You don't have to worry about. It's all on the side of the poetry to worry about. And okay, so those build files are here. I will try to publish them. I will just use again poetry for that. I will upload it to test PyPI because I don't want to clutter PyPI. I can try actually, but we'll say that I don't have permissions because I don't have credentials set up for normal virtual env, for normal PyPI, but I have for that. And I actually will show you my credentials right here. Use it if you want. but you can use it only on the test PyPI website and only on the project that is named exactly as it's somewhere on the screen. But that's how you specify the token. You should use token, not your login and password. Always generate token and try to generate token that is very specific for your package that you want to upload, not your whole account. It's doable. That's how you specify it with poetry. And after that, we can try to add some extra dependency. How you do it? Like that. Just add it here. And we will add AHO HTTP with version specified as 383 and so what we are doing right now, I think it has to be small t, right now is adding the poetry dependency that will not be, right. We'll notice that that is extra. That means it's not normally installed with your package, but user can specify extras by like installing it like our package name and something like here, right here. That's something we'll provide right now. That's something will be async, and we say that with us when user specifies async, we want to install HIO HTTP, and someone will have to type in our package name, then async, and that will install all the normal dependencies, so requests and AHO HTTP with async. We will also bump our version to 2.0, and that's it. And let's build it again with Python build to not clutter our environment. And as you can see, we have two things right now. Those are two wheels that are. I will extract something from those wheels. You don't have to worry about what exactly. This not two dots. That's metadata from first package, like the second version, and that's metadata from first version. Those are like things that any tool that tries to install that package, that we created, will extract what the package is and what it needs to function, like what are the dependencies. And let's leave. That didn't work. 0 and 0, 0 to 0. I did something. Oh, I see what I did wrong. I didn't extract the correct file from the second one. So let's div them. As you can see, version is different for sure, and that requires this with AHO HTTP is not the right one. What happened here? Yeah, live demos are fun. Tool poetry extra, async, optional, true version is specified. That should work. Oh, it's extra. So if you specify optional true and don't provide that package in any extras, then apparently Poetry treats that dependency as it wasn't actually optional. So I will remove quickly the O2. Sorry, that needs to be here, and add will list everything, and I will build it again. Build. Hopefully that will not. You have the dependencies, and this is a difference. Mainly, Poetry uses caret for allowing your Poetry itself to bump the minor and patch versions, and tilt to only patch version to be bumped. You don't have to take pictures. I will publish the slides. No worries. In 508, the caret is not defined, and tilt is defined by the length of your like number of segments that you are defining. Like right here, right here, you don't have that dot 0, and it will tilt will allow the tool in the background bump only the last digit. So here last digit is this. So both 0.1 and 2.0 are allowed with that specification, and if you provide that 0.0, only 2.11 is allowed, and obviously 3.0 is not allowed because it's too new, and 2.0 is not allowed because it's too old. Watch out for that. Let's go back to demo. I know, time ran out. So pretty much that. Next, that's fleet project. I had to modify a single thing. I had to modify like add that as awesome package tool fleet module awesome package to tell fleet what is the part of my package actually. That's like the only change from the setup tools to fleet to switch that I had to do, and obviously for some reason I didn't commit that, but here you have to change to require fleet instead of setup tools, and to use fleet instead of setup tools. So those two lines will be different, but that's pretty obvious because the tool like builder needs to know what to build, what to use, and it doesn't require changes if you use standards, but sometimes it requires some. Not a lot, but some. Let's go back. Yeah, so not every tool supports 6.1 like Poetry didn't. And even if it does, there are some tool-specific options outside of those standardized fields that you may need to specify. If my package was named exactly as my module, I didn't need to modify at all for the fleet to work, but I did it on purpose. So there was some difference. Some other tools. Black, PyTest, MyPy can all contain, and all the other tools, like there's GitHub awesome PyProject Tom, when you can see all of them, all of things that can be put in the PyProject Tom. Those used for development mostly, only maybe, you can specify their configuration in PyProject Tom, setup tools, SCM, and Poetry dynamic versioning as well. And those are actually plugins for setup tools and Poetry respectively. And I want to do very quick demo, I promise. Only with setup tools SCM. We don't have time for Poetry dynamic versioning, but it is the same. Works pretty much the same. You specify tool setup tools SCM to enable setup tools. You install it in requires, and you comment out the version number. With Poetry, you leave it with zeros, don't comment it because Poetry weirds out if it's not present, and you present that dynamic. It's also a standard with the version. That means version should be taken from somewhere else. And now, as you see, I have two tags. Current commit is on 3.0. 4.0 was for demo for the poetry. And when I'm building the package, it will build with that specific version. And as you can see at the very bottom, right here, 3.0 was built. It took the version number from my Git tag. It's nowhere specified in my repository, nowhere in my package. That's very handy because you don't have to edit anything in your repository to bump the version. You just add that tag. No more stupid bumping version commits in your package repository. So there's that. And in summary, PyProject Autonomy is awesome. Use it. Even if you use old project, like with Setup Py, I didn't demo it today. I didn't have time to prepare the demo, not even execute it. And Setup Py is not going anywhere. You can still use it. You can still execute it. It will not be default option for executing it. And that's it. But you can still use it. There are some other tools for building packages other than setup tools right now. Some of them have benefits, like Poetry can have like those creators command line, and it can be used for your dependencies of your project that is not a package, as well as package. But setup tools, I heard, is better for building C extensions. And this is no longer needed. That's not a problem. We no longer need it. And it's handy to keep version tags. Sorry. Oh, I've skipped this by mistake. In Python 3.12, these utils will be removed from standard lib. Long live these utils. It actually will reside still in the setup tools project. For backwards compatibility, it will be there forever probably. So all tools that uses these utils still are installable, but with those defaults like that meta legacy and that setup tools is still required, they will be still installable in the future. At some point, pip will switch over to completely isolated builds. So there will be no access from the build process outside of that ephemeral virtual env. So please don't rely on installing anything by user outside of your PyProject.tom file. Only things that are specified in PyProject.tom file in the required section should be required for your build. Nothing else, like no 6 in the system has to be installed, for example, because it will break at some point, even if you are not using PyProject.tom at all. Because, yeah, pip is still holding back on it, but they really want to execute that change. And setup bytes can be still used, etc. So let's go back to summary. We went over it, and thank you. Any questions?
Raz. Oh, a great talk. I think I saw it 2 years ago, right? Or something like that.
Yes,
Okay.
it was part of that. I didn't dig into the tools for building. There was no demo. It was only about PyProject.tom, and it wasn't really accurate because I think I said that pip was like introduced right there, and it actually was introduced a few years later. And I skipped over easy install for some reason. So it wasn't really accurate, but it was mostly about history and what led to PyProject's existence, and know how it's used and how you should use it.
Okay, so you are evolving.
Yes.
So my question is kind of the same as to the one that I asked 2 years ago, and it is about why not Conda? And yeah, I know it's a completely different space of things,
Yes.
but it really helps with dependencies in areas of machine learning and stuff like this. And
Yes, for machine learning, Conda and build out that I've specified there is probably better suited. Build out was actually more or less an inspiration for Conda existence, but build out died like I don't know in 2009, something like that. I didn't dig into that.
yeah, so
And Conda is better suited for machine learning environments when you have to install like whole other things outside of Python, like some system libraries, etc., where like all of it I've showed is only for Python and C extensions that are included in packages. So it's like smaller scope, and that scope is more suitable for projects like in web development or something like, or any like, I don't know, administration, etc. Like Django with Conda will be probably a nightmare to maintain, or
I don't know,
or any other things. But machine learning with all of this, with normal packages, will be probably nightmare as well. And I think Conda still fetches packages from pip and builds them inside.
yes, that's part of
So
it.
all of it is still required in Conda, but it's like it is being executed outside of your view when you're using Conda. And that's all my knowledge about Conda. Sorry.
Yeah, so my question is, in 2025, when you will repeat this talk again,
I hope I will not.
will you know, or would you try to learn more and present that to us then? That's my question. Thank you.
I'm not willing to learn about Conda. I don't think that's in my scope of interest at all. Sorry. But you're very welcome to give our talk about Conda and maybe about that obsolete build out. Why not? And in 2025, I don't think that will be that early, but let's hope. I will just say that I will do just a small lightning talk, like 5 seconds. I will just get on the stage and say, Poetry now supports PEP 621. Yay! That's it. But I don't think it happens before 2025 because the development of it is very slow. And I hope that also answers all of your concerns. Okay, any more questions?
Thanks for the presentation. And I have one simple question, or maybe not simple, but which method do you recommend to deliver software to production environments, especially if you don't have access to the internet, maybe? So virtualenv, Dockerized application, or you need to rely on package in the system. What is the best recommended method?
Probably Docker. Dockerize everything. Use those tools I've provided here. Like if your project is not a package, Poetry is the only way to go from the presented things, because setup tools and Fleet are only for package. I actually forgot to show twice. Never mind. Only for packages. They are only for packages. Setup tools and Fleet. So Poetry is your way to maintain your requirements for your projects that are not packages. It has locking capabilities that are not really can be utilized with packages, but they will not ship with your package. It's not their intended use, but they're handy for development of packages. They are all like batteries included. If you don't need C extensions, that's probably the way to go. If you need C extensions, you are probably building a package and including it in the project. I think. I don't really know how. I'm not really using C extensions, but I've heard that's how you use it. And Michał is no longer here. I know he's deep into that topic. But yeah, use Poetry probably, or pip tools. Pip tools are right now also supporting packages, but pip tools are not for rewind. Pip tools are now supporting PyProject Tom. They are supporting the PEP 621 defined dependencies. They can compile that, but pip tools are not for packages that can be used for like a log file in Poetry for setup tools packages or fleet packages, but they are not intended to ship with that. But pip tools are great for your projects as well that are not packages, like Poetry. Oh, Michał is still back there. Am I correct? If you are using C extensions, you probably want to install them from outside package and not build them directly in a project that is not shipped as a package. Is that right?
It depends.
It depends, but that's probably the easier route, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Anything else to that question? Okay. Any more questions?
Thanks for the presentation and a sentimental journey back to early 2000s, first of all. And for my question, so we're in 2023, say I'm building a new library, open source. I would like to use modern building tools for that, but I would also like to for everything to just work for my users. So what would you recommend? Should I still use this legacy config?
You shouldn't use legacy config. You can still like include setup py. If anyone installs for some reason directly by setup py, you can just like that, like console. That's it. Leave setup py. I will create some new lines. Leave that kind of setup py empty with just call to setup inside your project. If you really want to, if you're really worried somebody will just use setup py to install your project directly, and setup tools itself will know if that setup is empty. All that would normally get into that setup py, it will extract in from PyProject Tom file, and that's it. If it's new enough, but I expect if it's not new enough, yeah, users probably should update it, yeah, because security concerns whatsoever. Yeah. Is that does that answer your question? Yeah. Anything else?
Okay, thank you once again for the presentation. We don't have that much time. Presenters for their lightning talks to be lightning. So whoever of you who raised the hand earlier on, please come here and yeah, do you want to go first? Oh, Dominic, of course. Nobody expected that. Do you have a laptop? Okay. No,
Obojętny, już szkoda czasu. Okay, so hey, I'm disconnected and I have lightning talk regarding security in Python. So there is this CVE 2007, blah, blah, blah. So it was like very old, like 15 years ago or something. And there were some researcher team that is called Trellix Vuln team that basically took this CVE and reported it to like, I don't know, 200 or 500 or even 5,000 repos on GitHub. And so let's see what's the bug and what did they fix. Oh, pretty small. Okay, so we have this code here, which basically what it does, it uses with tar file open, so it opens a tar file, and then what it does, it extracts this tar file. You can't really see the highlight color here. It should be like red here, and it should be green here because this is what they added. But basically, so they removed this line, which is like, please extract all the archive, right? And then they replaced it with lots of lines here. So, this is their like replacement. So what is this vulnerability about? If I'm able to do this and maybe go a few slides further. Maybe earlier. Okay, so this is the documentation from tar file from Python, right? And for the extract all function, it says that you should never extract archives from untrusted sources without prior inspection. Why? Because it's possible that the tar file will have a file that will extract itself to a directory upper than where you actually want to extract it. Which means there is basically a path traversal vulnerability within this function. And there's a CVE for it. It wasn't fixed in Python yet. So they went ahead and they wanted to fix it in a lot of repositories. What is funny, this thing was used multiple times in this code, and they basically put the same patch like 5 times instead of putting it in a library or something. But that's fine, they probably automated it. They actually automated it. And let's see what was their fix. Okay, so this is more or less the code. We instead of like extract file, they put all this code here. So what it does in the end, it calls this safe extract and puts here the directory you want to extract it to. And then this safe extract function, it goes over all the members that are there in the tar file. It takes the paths that are there. It joins it with the path you want to extract to, and it calls is within directory for this path and the member path. So the final path, right? And if it's not correct, they raise an exception. So let's see the is within directory function. What it does, it takes an absolute path of a directory. This makes sense. I mean, they take the absolute path of the directory and of the target, so the resulting path. This makes sense because if you would do this path traversal, you can see this, this absolute path will actually return the whole path after resolving all the double dots, right? Then they do this OS path common prefix. Okay, well, we will see it in a moment. And afterwards, they compare the results. So the OS path common prefix should probably return you the common prefix of the two paths. And if the prefix is the same as the absolute directory where you want to extract it, right? Then it should be fine. And this function seems okay. So let's see the OS path common prefix. If you look over the documentation, it says given a list of path names, return the longest common leading component. So if we run it like this, so some A, some B, and we, for example, want to extract it to double dots and some VVV. And I think I need to put a list as an argument here. It will return us nothing because nothing is really the common prefix of this, right? But if this would be just, I don't know, /A/B, like an absolute path of a target, it will return us A/B. That makes sense. Okay, but let's see what will happen if our resulting target path is something like this. It still says that A/B is this common prefix, right? So the common prefix matches, but the resulting target path, if you would use the absolute path for this, apps path, it would actually be something like this. So we wanted to extract the ./bxxx file into this directory a/b, but instead we will extract it into the directory upper with the name of this file that is that has the prefix of the directory we want to extract to. So basically, you know, they made a fix, but this fix is incomplete. So, you know, this is the first issue. The second issue is that, do you actually care about this vulnerability? Where did they report it to? There are repositories like samgrep rules. Samgrep is a tool which you can use to scan your code for vulnerabilities, and you basically write rules how to find the bugs. And they reported it to one of like repositories which contains those rules. And you know, the response is like, literally patching the thing we are testing for. Brilliant work. And you know, this pull request is closed because basically the file they wanted to apply the fix for was a test file to test the, you know, static analysis. So first of all, and you know, I said to you that there is this bug, right? And there are people who actually, I probably won't find it now, it was here. There are people who merged this. This is a repository who merged this. So they merged a fix, which is incomplete fix. So maybe a lesson learned here, that if you are trying to fix some vulns globally, first of all, make sure you are actually fixing them. Second of all, maybe don't report the bugs automatically to every repo possible, because, well, maybe someone doesn't care about this bug because maybe the path that you provide here is not controlled by an attacker. And yeah, I don't remember what else. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, testing, it works. Okay, hi, I'm Artur, and I always encourage people to do more lightning talks. And if you don't have an idea for a lightning talk, you can always do a lightning talk about something that happened in the last week or two. So this is going to be one of those talks. So as you can imagine, we reached the high point, and it's going to be downhill from now. So I'm going to talk about generating pictures, and I'm going to show you a couple of tools, and I will attempt to tell a story, but I don't have that much time, so I'll probably tell only part of the story. So the story starts here. That's the logo. That's the logo of the Dominic's CTF team. You can see it on the t-shirt as well. And there was an idea to create t-shirts with this logo, but not exactly this logo, sort of the artwork that's based on this logo. And the long story short is that if you can look at the logo, you can see that there's a cat, and the cat holds a fish, and it's from the behind. And the graphic designer was given that brief, and the other part of the brief was that the left half of the picture is supposed to be realistic, and the right part of that's supposed to be the PCB. And the graphic designer came back with the draft. It was great, but the fish looked a little bit creepy, and we tried to figure out how to give them the feedback about that. And at some point, I figured out that we have technology for this. We can just generate a picture. We can just write words, and they will generate a picture of the cat holding a fish. Turns out it's harder than it sounds. And I'm going to talk about tools for a second, and I'm going to show you some results later. So who heard about DALL-E? Okay, most of you. So DALL-E is an OpenAI thing. You can just log in and then start generating pictures. What about the open source? There's a Stable Diffusion. Who heard about Stable Diffusion? Okay, almost everyone. So with Stable Diffusion, you can download it, and you can use it with Python or any other sort of tool. And the great part about it being open source is that there's lots of tools already built for it. So for example, if you just want to generate a picture, you can just download something that's already prepackaging the Stable Diffusion for you. For example, something like Invoke AI, and you literally just download it and you get this nice GUI. So you get a GUI that looks like this, and this is me attempting to generate a cat. You can have all the parameters on the left, how many images, how many steps, what's the width, height, what's the sampler. And here on the right, you can choose a different model. So it comes by default with all of those, and you can install new models if you want to. It doesn't work with Stable Diffusion 2 yet, but it works fine with 1.5 and all the variations of 1.5. Now, this is not the correct prompt. This is a different prompt. So I tried to generate some of the cats. Some of the cats looked better. Some of the cats looked worse. That wasn't a cat. Some of the cats even had a fish. Let me just maybe zoom it a little bit. So some cats had a fish, but the fish wasn't sort of in the way where it's supposed to be. This is actually pretty nice, but the fish is still a bit not where it's supposed to be. Then I tried to generate some cats. All of them didn't sort of look great. This one looks cool. There was also this cat. Then I tried generating some fishes, and this first fish came out really fishy, but then all the other ones, for some reason, when I asked it to generate one single fish, it came out with entire school of fish. Some of them better than others. Some of them even better than others. There is a cat and there's a fish. It's all coming from the same. Yeah, that's a catfish and a cat, and then whatever is there. Some were even worse. And some were completely different. And those are like meetup, so those are different ones. Okay, so what else can you do? There are other tools. For example, there is a tool, called Imaginary. And Imaginary, you can actually just pip install it. You create a new virtual env, you pip install it, you give it a prompt, and it will generate a picture. I will not demo it right now because we don't have much time, but it also comes with another tool called AEMG, when you can just edit and you can tell, like, make it winter, and then it will take this picture and then make it winter. Or it will take this bowl and then it make it a bowl of strawberries just by giving it a command. And you don't have to do anything. You can just pip install a bunch of stuff. So I took a picture that we originally got from the graphic designer, and I'm not going to show you the original picture, but I'm going to show you what I did. So I asked it to do a fish. I asked it to make the fish more realistic, and that's what it came back with. Wasn't particularly great, but then it had some better and worse moments. Here you can see that it's definitely a fish. Here it produced this magnificent blob of concrete, which is the best of all the things that it generated so far. This is the same block of concrete, but in the style of Beksiński. Sometimes the fish was more pronounced. Sometimes both the fish and the cat were more pronounced. Sometimes only the cat were visible. Sometimes the cat was in the wrong place. And sometimes it took the entire picture. Can I do more? Sometimes both the cat and the fish were there, but all of them were wrong. And yeah. Anyway, so what? How do I zoom out? Okay, and how do I go back? Okay, so what can you do if you want your picture to be more epic? You can use Midjourney. Who knows what Midjourney is? Okay, so if you don't know what Midjourney is, there's a Discord server where you can go and you can generate the picture just by asking Discord bot to generate the picture for you, and it's going to be awesome. Midjourney, unfortunately, is not open source, but it comes with a bot, and you can go to Midjourney server, which has almost 10 million people, actually. Oh. So by the end of the meetup, it's probably going to be 10. And also, Maciek, where's Maciek? Maciek also added the same bot to the PyData server, so you can actually go there as well, and there's less noise. This is actually me trying to generate a picture of a meetup and somebody talking about Python. Anyway, this is the similar idea with the prompt from the Jessica the Fish, and when you get this, you can generate the variants of each picture. And this is a couple of other pictures that I generated with Midjourney. Unfortunately, it cannot grasp the idea that cat and a fish are two separate objects, and it tries to generate like a cat that looks like a fish, or something else. And so Midjourney is not open source, but some people are working on teaching Stable Diffusion based on the output of the Midjourney. So there is like an open source version that's the thing on the left is Stable Diffusion, and the thing on the right is Stable Diffusion that is taught on the outputs of the Midjourney. So you can actually get something that looks like the output from a Midjourney from the open source models as well. And this is, I think, still based on 1.5, but there is also the beta on the Stable Diffusion. Well, this is also 1.5, but it's but it's a newer Midjourney. And yeah, this is the closest that I've got. Well, and it's not actually even me. I asked somebody who generated lots of pictures to generate the prompt, and that's how close they got to generating something that looks like a fish that is held by a cat from behind. But just generating a picture, like if you want to generate a very specific picture from the prompt, it's actually really, really hard. So yeah, that's it from me.
So as you can see, I just want to talk about FOSDEM, which will be 4th and 5th of February. I know that it's a little bit late, but Pykonik is today, so as I know about this conference, so I can show. If you cannot go there, so there will be streaming, so it will be possible to see. So I'm not related with this conference. I'm just going there sometimes, and that's all. So I'm not I'm not a volunteer. I'm not working for them. I just wanted to say about something which I liked. So this conference, it's in Brussels. I was there in 2020. It was 20th conference, 20th year of this free and open source programming conference. So what I wanted to show, it's really big one. So it's in the university in Brussels. So you can see there is tracks, developer rooms. Yeah, how it's related with Pykonik. We have they have a Python developer room. So and much more interesting things. Yeah, it's free. It's very important. Live streaming will be, so this is a link. It's possible to find it on the main page. There are tracks which will be there. They have application which it's possible to install on the phone, and it's very nice application about all this really difficult track. There are some unofficial events like Fringe. So if somebody wants to have some unofficial events, they just can can say about them. Yeah, and it's very interesting why I prefer to go there by myself. Not just watching online, it stands. Because on stands you can talk with people from KDE, GNOME. I was interested in Linux phones, yes, mobile phones were installed Linux, so there is somewhere Pine64, one interesting project. So it was good opportunity to go there just to touch these phones and everything. So I prepared some photos from last offline edition. So it's about talks and how many talks and different speakers. This is this Pine phone, which I was interested in, and really I wanted to touch it, to see it, to see how programs work on it and everything. Yeah, a person from VLC. It's the only person on my photos which I can share because everybody was making photos of him, and it was fun. This is okay. It was amateur radio stations. So people who are interested in amateur radios. So it's SDR, and it was interesting to talk with them. Unfortunately, 3 years ago. So I hope I will meet them again. And they made some antenna there. It was on the street, so in this campus, but not inside. Yeah, some unofficial events in Brussels hackerspace. Who was interested to catch up with more people and everything. And this is. Oops, I forgot. So there is a Pine64 company which makes Linux phones, and another one. Who remembers how it's called? The phone. No, not operating system. So it's another one phone. Librem. It was Librem one. Because Pine64, it was easier to buy and it was cheaper, but Librem was quite expensive one, so it was a good opportunity to touch it, to see it, if I like it or not. And this is a watch from Pine64, like smartwatch, which I thought that it's interesting. And that's all. That's all I wanted to say. Just.
I want to add one information. What's differentiate from the other conferences, that this conference has this developer rooms that are focus area of expertise. So for example, there is a Golang room, Python, MySQL, or whatever. If you are interested in one topic particularly, you can catch up in one room and stay for the whole conference and watch the talks about this particular technology. But one important notice, if you want to go, some rooms are very occupied, so it's good to be earlier to catch up a place.
Anyone got convinced to maybe go?
Raz.
Like 200 zlotys.
All hotels nearby are kind of occupied already. But you don't have it nearby because everything is in the center anyway.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Maciej, and I worked on a thing for a little bit of time. Yes, this is PowerPoint. This is no poor man's Google Slides with animations. So, I kind of wrote a book. It's actually a PhD thesis. Lots of people do things like this, but they don't advertise their work. Since I put a lot of effort into that work, I will advertise it. I hope that a little bit of self-promotion is okay. Also, it's kind of applied science and uses a lot of Python inside. It's in English. It's written to be read by people like you. And probably no one will read it, but at least I tried. It has Python, AI, neural networks, probabilistic programming, Large Hadron Collider, particle physics, reinforcement learning, web frameworks, romance, epic battle, GitHub links, also Star Trek, Matrix. Actually, only one of those things above is not there. You have to read it to know which one. It has everything that you need to know about this topic. And you can find it there. There is a link in the description of my GitHub page. Thank you, that's it.
Okay, so let's wrap up this meetup. I just have a few things to say, and of course, I want to summarize the competition. But first of all, let's wrap up the meetup with few final words. Thanks to everyone who is here. We've had quite a lot of knowledge today being passed to you, so I hope that you've gained some value out of this meeting. And I also wanted to thank everyone on the streaming today who was watching us live, and maybe I will thank all of those that will watch us in future on YouTube. I also wanted to thank Spoton for pizza, drinks, gifts, venue, and all the wonderful help. I wanted to thank JetBrains for 2 PyCharm licenses that will be given away in a minute. And in the end, I wanted to thank Clark for organizing the whole technical setup and the streaming. Last but not least, I wanted to, yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks to every of them. And you reminded me one more thing is that I wanted to thank everyone involved into organization of this meeting, because it's quite a few people. So maybe everyone who was involved at least in a tiny bit in organizing of this meeting, just raise your hand. I'm like this in this meeting, but yeah, here they are. So a huge applause for all of them. If you would like to help us in any way, the best way is to grab us on the after party, but also to write on the Slack, on the Discord. I'm still not used that it's Discord now. Write on the Discord that you have some spare time and that you want to help. We will welcome any help in organizing this. Where to find us? pykonik.org and discord.pykonik.org. Here we are. And now for the finalization of the competition. And this is the place where I would say goodbye to everyone on the stream, because the competition is only held in here in person. So thanks for watching us. And now